For 3 long years, a cold shadow had lingered within the golden walls of the palace. The Sheikh Billionario, once proud and unyielding, now lived cloaked in silence, a fortress built not of stone, but of endless restraint. His touch, once tender and commanding, was withheld, an exile inflicted on the woman who bore his name but never his warmth. The desert wind whispered secrets outside, but inside, only the heavy weight of unspoken pain filled the air. The emirate stretched endlessly beyond the horizon, where dunes rolled like waves under a blanket of stars. The palace stood like a jewel carved from dreams, marble pillars soaring to the sky, floors woven with threads of silk and gold, and the intoxicating scent of frankincense wrapping the halls in a timeless embrace. Yet, amid all this grandeur, the Sheikh Billionario remained a prisoner of his own heart, enclosed in his solitude. He sat alone in the vast hall, fingers twitching against the armrest, as though a storm brewed beneath his composed exterior. His dark eyes, sharp and restless, flickered toward the door where his wife moved gracefully, her presence as delicate as the desert rose, beautiful yet trapped beneath layers of silence. Her eyes held a quiet sorrow, a fortress of secrets, guarding a fragile spirit against the cold distance he so fiercely maintained. 3 years without a single touch had worn on both of them. In this kingdom of opulence and power, their marriage was a silent war zone. Every glance exchanged was weighty, every word clipped and careful. No warmth thawed the icy distance, and in their shared bedroom, loneliness lingered thicker than the embroidered velvet on their sheets. "Your Highness," she spoke softly one evening, voice barely crossing the vast space between them. "The envoy has arrived." He did not respond immediately, the crackle of a candle the only sound. Then his voice broke the stillness, low, distant, but resolute. "Prepare to receive him." Her heart tightened. That old command, sharp as a scimitar, reminded her of the walls between them. Yet beneath his hardness there floated an unspoken tension, an ember waiting to ignite. She met his gaze briefly, and in the flicker of candlelight, something raw and untold passed between them. For a moment, the silence fractured. His words came quicker this time, laced with a dangerous edge. "No longer will I be a husband in name only." She froze, breath caught in her throat. The Sheikh Billionario rose from his seat, his steps heavy but certain. The weight of years pressed behind him, but something deeper, regret, desire, fear, drove him forward. His hand hovered near her, trembling before retreating. Then, unexpectedly, he reached out, closing the gap with a claim that was both possessive and desperate. "It's time to break these chains." Her eyes searched his for truth, a fierce, tormenting truth that promised upheaval. She had kept her own secrets, buried beneath smiles and silence. But now the fragile barrier was cracking. Outside, the desert stretched vast and silent as ever, but inside the palace, a storm was awakening. Before the next secret of this luxurious palace unfolds, quickly check if you are already part of our caravan of stories. Many destinies will still be shaped, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave a like if the heart of this billionaire sheik has already intrigued you. Tell me in the comments, From which city are you following this saga? And what twist do you expect next? Your passion for these dramas inspires us to keep telling these tales. Thank you for being with us. The vast hall of the palace held its breath as the Sheikh Billionario stood rigid. The weight of 3 silent years pressed deep into the lines etched on his face. His fingers, twitching uncontrollably moments before, now curled into a fist at his side, as if grasping at the very air to pull himself together. The candlelight flickered against the marble pillars, casting long shadows that danced like ghosts across the gilded walls. She watched him from the doorway, her heart a fragile bird trapped beneath ribs, tightly wound with fear and hope. The desert wind whispered faintly beyond the massive doors, but inside, the only sound was the steady beat of her own anxious pulse. The Sheikh's sharp gaze locked on hers, no longer dismissive or cold, but troubled, haunted by battles fought within. "It's time," he said, his voice rough, a storm rising beneath the calm. "No more distance, no more pretending." Each word dropped like a pebble into a silent well, ripples of tension spreading between them. Her breath hitched as he stepped forward, the scent of oud and amber swirling in the heated air around him. His presence was overwhelming, an intoxicating mix of power and vulnerability, of danger and desperate longing. Yet his hand, which hovered uncertainly near her face, trembled, as if afraid to bridge the chasm carved by years of silence. She swallowed the words lodged in her throat, the apologies, the fears, the love that dared not speak its name. All the moments lost, stolen by pride and stubbornness, now hung heavy in the charged space between them. "I can't undo what's been done," he murmured, voice rough with confession. "But I swear, I will not keep you trapped in this cold cage." Her eyes glistened with a fierce light. The woman he saw was not the fragile, silent shadow she'd become. Inside, beneath the shimmer of silk and the weight of palace expectations, lay a heart forged in resilience and secrets too painful to share. The palace, for all its grandeur, suddenly felt unbearably small. The gilded cages, the endless corridors lined with tapestries depicting generations of rulers, could not contain the tempest rising inside them. "They think this coldness is strength," she finally whispered, stepping closer, the fine fabric of her gown whispering against the marble floor. "But it is only the armor we wear to hide how broken we truly are." A faint trace of a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. For the first time in years, the Sheikh's mask cracked, revealing the man beneath, flawed, wounded, but still fiercely alive. "Then teach me to be strong without the armor," he challenged softly. "Help me learn what it means to be whole, with you." Their eyes locked, worlds colliding in that suspended moment. Outside, the desert stars seemed to pulse in harmony with the awakening storm inside the palace. Suddenly, the heavy doors creaked open, drawing their gaze to the entrance where a figure shrouded in the deep shadows of twilight waited. The envoy. The outsider's presence was a stark reminder of the fragile peace hanging by a thread. A reminder that while hearts began to thaw, the world beyond was unforgiving. The Sheikh stepped back, wrestling with his inner turmoil. Duty called him back to the throne, while the hunger to reclaim lost intimacy pulled him in another direction. The clash of empire and desire swirled inside him like a desert whirlwind. Behind his eyes, memories flickered. The first time his gaze had caught hers, bright and fierce. The silent coldness that had grown like a wall between them. The whispered promises never spoken aloud in the moonlit chambers. Her hand reached out slowly, trembling but determined, until it steadied on his arm. A silent vow of fragile trust. "I won't run," she said, her voice steady despite the quiver. "Not anymore." The palace seemed to exhale, the air thick with possibility and fear. Servants hurried past with hushed whispers, unaware of the silent war now shifting behind the closed doors. In the dim light, the Sheikh's dark eyes searched hers again, desperate for a sign. A flicker of hope strong enough to shatter the icy prison around them. Then, as the envoy's presence edged closer, a sudden shiver stole over the room. Not from the night air, but from the whispered secret that had lain buried deeper than either dared to admit. A letter, barely touched by time, slipped from the folds of the envoy's ornate cloak when the hem caught beneath a gilded chair leg, its wax seal cracked open. The Sheikh's hand shot out reflexively, catching the morsel of parchment before it hit the floor. His gaze darkened as his fingers tightened, the cold grip of a past betrayal, newly unearthed. Her breath caught, sensing the invisible thread snapping between what was hidden and what was now irreversibly exposed. He unfolded the letter with hands nearly shaking, and at the same time their eyes met, a silent plea passing between them. "This changes everything," he whispered, voice barely audible, laced with shock and disbelief. Outside the palace, the desert stretched endlessly, silent, vast, and indifferent to the storms born within golden walls, and inside, the fragile veil of their tentative reconciliation shattered as a secret long buried beneath sand and silence threatened to consume them both. The night grew colder, and the Sheikh Billionario's world tilted precariously on the edge of revelation. The Sheikh Billionario's hands trembled as he unfolded the ancient letter, the brittle parchment crackling softly in the quiet room. His deep, dark eyes scanned the faded script, each word striking like a shard of glass, piercing the fragile peace that had just begun to settle between him and his wife. The wax seal, broken, yet still ominous, symbolized not only a secret long buried, but a betrayal that threatened to unravel every fragile thread of trust they'd painstakingly sewn together. The woman watching him from across the room felt as though the air itself had thickened, the silence stretching unbearable. Her heart pounded, a tempest trapped behind ribs, as her eyes never left the Sheikh's face, taut, shadowed with disbelief and a storm of confusion. The grand palace, with all its opulence, seemed suddenly hollow, as if the walls themselves dreaded the truth now unleashed. He let out a slow breath, barely a whisper, but heavy as the desert sun at noon. "This letter, it's from my late brother." His voice cracked, revealing vulnerability he rarely allowed himself to show. A warning and a confession. His gaze flickered to the woman, the one who had endured his silence for 3 long years. There is more beneath this silence than you know. Her breath caught, the secrets she carried, the lies forced upon them both, felt suddenly insignificant compared to the weight he now bore. The gulf between them began to narrow, not with words, but with the shared gravity of a past neither could escape. As the candlelight flickered, casting uncertain shadows across their faces, the Sheikh stepped forward, the letter clenched tight in one fist. His usual cold resolve fractured beneath the tidal wave of emotion swirling inside him. My brother feared a curse, an enemy lurking in the palace walls, manipulating from the shadows, weaving treachery into our very bloodline, he confessed. He begged me to be cautious, to never trust even those closest. His eyes locked onto hers, searching for understanding, or perhaps forgiveness. I was blinded by bitterness and lost sight of love. But now, he swallowed hard, now I fear the danger has found us both. The woman's fingers twitched at her sides, the heavy silks brushing the marble floor like whispers of old stories. Then we are prisoners, bound not only by silence, but by pain, passed down like a curse, she said softly, her voice steady, despite the tremor beneath. But what if we stopped running from it? What if, instead, we faced the shadows together? For a heartbeat, the Sheikh's proud posture softened. His face, usually carved in stone, betrayed a flicker of hope. Together, he repeated, the word tasting foreign, yet intoxicating on his tongue. But the fragile moment shattered as a sudden, urgent knock echoed through the hall. The heavy doors swung open, revealing a messenger cloaked in the colors of a neighboring emirate. His eyes were sharp, his expression urgent, a flame kindled by news that had traveled beneath desert stars. The Sheikh's gaze sharpened immediately. The message he received was sealed not with wax, but with ominous finality, a summons to a tribunal that could shatter the already cracked peace of his realm. They demand an answer, the messenger said, voice low and grave. They accuse your family of betrayal, of colluding with enemies to the south. The words hung heavy, bitter as desert night. The palace seemed to close in around them, the weight of generations pressing down like the relentless sun. The Sheikh's hand tightened around the letter, knuckles whitening. His wife stepped forward, a flicker of defiance in her eyes amid the swirling storm of uncertainty. We will not let ancient grudges destroy what we are trying to rebuild, she declared, voice firm, but not without vulnerability. This is our fight, one we will face side by side. The Sheikh inclined his head, a silent promise burning bright in the depths of his gaze. Then, without warning, he crushed the fragile letter in his hand, the crackling sound echoing like a gunshot in the vast hall. Let them come, he said, the fire of his ancestors igniting anew. I will protect my family, no matter the cost. Between them, the tension shifted, like the desert breeze before a storm, charged with a raw and terrifying energy. The woman reached out, her fingers brushing his arm, a touch both fragile and fierce. This was no longer a battle fought in silence. It was war, and their hearts were the battlefield. Suddenly, a servant burst in, breathless and pale. "Your Highness, the Chamberlain has returned. He bears grave news." The words fell like a death sentence. The Sheikh's eyes narrowed. "Speak." "He has been caught, passing secrets, dangerous secrets, to the rival emirate." A shiver ran down the woman's spine. The enemy was closer than they thought, lurking not in distant lands, but within the gilded halls meant to protect them. The Sheikh's jaw clenched, his mind racing like desert sands whipped by fierce wind. The palace, once a symbol of power and control, was now a labyrinth of treachery, and trust was a fragile thing, more valuable than gold and more perilous than death. He turned to his wife, eyes blazing with fierce determination. "The past will not destroy us, but if we fall apart now, everything will be lost." His voice softened just enough to echo the pain beneath the strength. "We must uncover the traitor before the walls close in." She nodded, resolve hardening in her gaze. "And when they do, they will find two not broken by silence, but united by fire." The desert night pressed in at the windows, shadows lengthening like fingers of fate. And as the moon cast silver light across the palace's marble floors, a new game began. One where loyalty would be tested, secrets unearthed, and love pushed to its breaking point. The Sheikh stared at the shattered letter in his palm, then slowly lifted his face. Somewhere between vengeance and forgiveness, between past sins and future promises, lay the path they must now walk together. And deep within the shadowed halls, where whispered threats lingered, something ancient stirred. Awake at last, watching, waiting. A single word echoed in the Sheikh's mind, cold and undeniable: betrayal. The cracked letter lay heavy in the Sheikh Billionaire's palm, its brittle edges whispering of truths long concealed beneath layers of royal deceit. His gaze, dark and storm-wrought, lingered over the faded ink, as though trying to read between the lines, desperate to grasp the weight of betrayal that had settled like a desert drought upon his heart. Behind him, the woman stood silent, her breath barely a whisper against the marble coldness. She watched him unfold the fragile parchment with trembling fingers, each fissure in his stoic facade deepening like the shadows around them. The golden glow of the oil lamps wavered, casting flickering light on the tense contour of his face. "My brother's warning," the Sheikh murmured, voice raw and edged with pain. He spoke of enemies whispering in our halls, weaving webs around our family. But I was blind, consumed by anger, by pride. I let the silence grow, thinking it shielded me, but it was a cage. Her eyes softened, glistening with unshed tears. We both lived in that cage, built from years of silence and misunderstanding. But the walls are cracking now. He took a step closer, the distance between them shrinking with every hesitant heartbeat. "The Chamberlain's betrayal isn't just a threat to me," he confessed, voice low, trembling with a vulnerability rarely revealed. "It's a wound to everything I stand for, the lineage, the honor, and to you." She reached out, her hand brushing his arm, light as a desert breeze, but charged with fierce defiance. "Then we face this wound together, no more secrets, no more walls." A sudden clatter echoed through the hall, as a servant hurried in, breathless and pale. "Your Highness, a message has arrived from the Southern Emirates." The Sheikh's gaze darkened instantly. "Show me." The envelope was unsealed, the seal broken not by time, but by intent. Its contents were swift and brutal. Accusations of treason, of alliances forged in shadows, with enemies poised to strike. The words burned sharper than the midday sun, igniting a fury within the Sheikh's chest. He crushed the letter in his fist, a sound like the breaking of glass slicing the silence. "They believe me a traitor," he growled. "They threaten everything we have suffered to rebuild." Her fingers curled tightly around his wrist, as if anchoring him against the surge of turmoil. "We will prove them wrong. We will root out the enemy before they sow more devastation." He looked down at her, the woman who had endured his coldness, held his silence, and dared to reach for him in darkness. Despite everything, hope kindled between them, fragile yet fierce. "Tonight, we begin a war unseen," he declared, voice steady now, the fire of command returning with a vengeance. "Not just for our throne, but for the truth, for us." The palace seemed to hold its breath as the night deepened. Silk curtains fluttered faintly in the desert wind, carrying whispers from distant corners of the realm. The opulent hall, once a sanctuary of cold luxury, felt claustrophobic with the weight of treachery and the promise of conflict. "Tell me about him," the woman urged softly, a flicker of ancient curiosity piercing her fear. "The Chamberlain, who is he really?" The Sheikh's eyes narrowed, haunted by memories. A puppet, one who danced too close to the fire for coin and power, trusted once too well. Her lips pressed into a firm line. "And now, what do you suspect?" He breathed deeply, the scent of oud and desert jasmine lingering between them. "That the enemy is far more cunning. This betrayal is only the beginning." She stepped into the circle of light, her presence a defiant echo of resilience amid the shadows. "Then we root out the seeds of deceit before they choke the garden." He reached out, fingers grazing the back of her hand, a tentative bridge over the chasm time had carved. "Will you stand with me?" he asked, voice husky with emotion. "Always," she replied, heart pounding, the silent pledge resonating deeper than words. The grand doors suddenly opened, revealing the palace advisor, eyes sharp and troubled. He bowed curtly. "Your Highness, the Southern Emir's forces approach, their alliance strengthened by our own blood's treachery." The Sheikh's jaw clenched. "Then we prepare. The night holds no mercy, and neither will I." The walls seemed to pulse with a dangerous rhythm, the very air charged with impending storm. She watched him then, this man racked in silk and shadow, torn between vengeance and yearning. Behind the armor of authority, she glimpsed a soul battered but unbroken, a man ready to reclaim not just his kingdom, but the love he had forsaken to pride. Suddenly, a whisper reached them from the depths of the palace, a secret voice, ancient and sinister. The flicker of candlelight danced one last time before plunging the hall into uneasy darkness. The Sheikh's eyes gleamed with fierce determination. "No more silence," he vowed. "No more shadows. We face this together." But as the servants hurried to their tasks, and the echoes of footsteps faded into stillness. A faint, chilling sound slipped beneath the marble floors. A slow, deliberate tapping, like a heartbeat, signaling danger far too close. And in that sacred silence, a figure cloaked in darkness watched, unblinking, waiting for the moment to strike. The Sheikh Billionaire's world, once ruled by power and cold control, now teetered on the edge of chaos. Because in this palace of gold and secrets, the deepest betrayal lay not in distant lands, but in the shadow that walked beside them all along. The echo of the servant's words lingered in the grand hall, thickening the air like the heat that pressed against the palace walls. The chamberlain, trusted, revered, now unmasked as a traitor. The revelation twisted like a thorn in the Sheikh Billionaire's chest, sharp and unforgiving, threatening to choke what little calm had begun to root between them. He stood rigid, eyes fixed on the crushed letter in his hand. Now just fragments of parchment and broken seals, symbols of a past entwined with deceit. The flickering candlelight carved shadows over his face, accentuating the storm that raged beneath his composed exterior. Every breath seemed measured, deliberate, as if drawing strength from the very walls that promised protection, but whispered betrayal. His wife stepped forward, silk whispering against. The marble floor, her gaze fierce, unyielding. She placed her hand gently on his wrist, a gesture light but charged with the weight of unspoken promises. We are no longer prisoners to silence, nor pawns in games played behind our backs. This ends now. The Sheikh's dark eyes met hers, a fragile beacon in the sea of turmoil. His voice, low and rough, carried the burden of years and the spark of newfound resolve. Tonight, the shadows will be unmasked. Trust has been shattered, but I will forge a new path from the ashes. Outside, the soft desert wind scraped against the palace doors, carrying with it a distant echo of drums. A reminder that the Emirates' enemies were close, watching, waiting for weakness. The vast dunes, once silent watchers, seemed to bristle with threats unseen. They moved together through the corridors, a silent but unbreakable alliance. The weight of the palace's opulence pressed on them, yet beneath the gold and silk lurked secrets far darker than the night sky. Every tapestry, every carved pillar, told stories of power and pride. Now, they would tell tales of betrayal, justice, and love rekindled amid ruin. In the private chamber, maps and letters lay scattered, evidence of plotting beyond the palace walls. The Sheikh's fingers traced the borders of his realm, eyes narrowing as he pieced together the threads of conspiracy. They conspire with the southern Emirates, he murmured, voice woven with bitterness and fury. They seek to fracture us from within. The chamberlain was but their first pawn. His wife leaned closer, the warmth of her presence a stark contrast to the chill that gripped his heart. Then we force their hand. We strike before the war is declared. He turned to her, the flicker of candlelight revealing a soul both haunted and hopeful. 3 years ago, I built walls to protect this palace, from enemies, from pain, even from love. His gaze softened, shadows yielding to fragile light. But today, I tear those walls down. her breath caught, eyes glimmering with the fire of shared defiance. The strength we need lies not in solitude, but in unity. The night deepened, swallowing their whispered vow beneath a sky veiled in stars. Yet the palace was far from silent. Footsteps pattered beyond the heavy doors, as servants hurried to preparations unknown to all but a few. A sudden knock shattered the fragile calm. Sharp and urgent, the Sheikh's head snapped toward the entrance. The door swung open, revealing a figure cloaked in midnight blue, face hooded, but eyes burning with purpose. "I bring news from the border," the messenger announced, voice tense. "An army gathers, unaware they are to be betrayed." The Sheikh's jaw clenched, muscles taut as drawn swords. "By whose hand?" The messenger hesitated, then revealed a name, whispered only in the darkest corners of the palace. A name that echoed like a curse. "It is one close to you, my lord." The woman's eyes widened, pain and alarm mingling in their depths. The room seemed to shrink, the air thickening with dread. Betrayal was no longer a distant shadow. It had become their very breath. The Sheikh Billionaire's fists clenched at his side. The fight within him igniting into a storm of desperate clarity. He would not surrender to the ghosts of the past. He would root out the traitor, reclaim the fortress of his heart, and protect not only his kingdom, but the fragile love that had begun to bloom in the desert's unforgiving embrace. He stepped forward, the weight of crown and duty settling heavier than ever. "Prepare the guards. Every door must be watched. No one enters or leaves without my knowledge." His wife moved beside him, resolve hardening like tempered steel. "Tell me what to do," she demanded. "I stand with you, as always." Their hands met, a touch brief but blazing with the promise of war and whispered hope. But as the candle guttered, casting long quivering shadows, a faint sound slipped into the silence, a slow, deliberate tap. Like a heartbeat echoed beneath the marble floor. Eyes locking in unspoken fear, they both turned toward the source of that chilling rhythm. The palace held its breath, and somewhere, unseen, the traitor smiled. The moon hung low over the palace, its silver light spilling through towering windows and tracing the gilded pillars with ghostly fingers. The air inside was thick, heavy with the scent of frankincense and unspoken fears. The vast hall felt smaller tonight, as if the very walls pressed inward, closing around the Sheikh Billionaire and the woman who had dared to stand by him. He stood rigid, the shattered remnants of the letters still crushed in his palm, the weight of betrayal pressing against his chest like the desert sun at high noon. His eyes, dark and unyielding, darted to the grand doors as they swung open once more. A messenger, breathless and sharp-eyed, entered with urgency crackling in his every step. "Your Highness," the man said, voice low but urgent. "Another report has reached us. The traitor's actions have already weakened the frontier defenses. An alliance is forming. Hidden factions within our court conspire with those who would see us fall." His words hung between them, heavy and poisonous. The Sheikh's jaw clenched until the muscles twitched, fingers gripping the edge of the marble pedestal beside him, as if to anchor himself against the storm swelling inside. He swallowed hard, tasting the bitter ash of anger and fear. His wife moved closer, her presence a tentative flame against the cold shadows. She reached out, resting her palm over his clenched fist, a silent balm that spoke of unity despite the fractures beneath. "We cannot allow this poison to spread," she said, voice steady, yet laced with an undercurrent of defiance. "But we must be careful. Those who weave these plots are cunning. Loyalty wears many masks." The Sheikh's gaze softened for a flicker, vulnerability peeking through the armor of power. "I was blinded by rage, by pride. Maybe that was my greatest mistake." He looked down at their entwined hands. "I could have trusted you sooner." Her breath caught, heart tightening from a mix of hope and the ache of lost time. "We are more than prisoners of silence now. We are warriors, against the shadows that threaten to consume us." He stepped away, pacing with restless energy, the hem of his embroidered robe whispering against the polished stone. His mind raced through every whispered conversation, every shadow lurking beyond the velvet curtains. "We will summon our most loyal guards. Every corner of this palace, every secret passage must be watched." His voice was low but sharp, a blade carving through the suffocating tension. She followed, her silk gown a ripple of moonlight on the floor, her eyes never leaving his face. "And the council? Whom can we trust there?" He stopped short, dark eyes narrowing with icy resolve. "Only a few, but their loyalty is fierce. We will use the web of trust we have left to trap the deceit before it spreads any further." The whispers of servants and faint echoes of footsteps echoed in the labyrinthine halls as they moved. The grand tapestries seemed to watch silently, their royal histories bearing witness to yet another tale of treachery and fragile alliances. In the private war room, maps were unfurled beneath flickering lamps. The Sheikh traced with pale fingers the lines of their borders, the possible paths of invaders and traitors alike. The desert beyond stretched endlessly, indifferent to the storms raging within his domain. His wife leaned over the maps, eyes sharp and calculating. "We must strike first, before their shadows fully darken our gates." A bitter smile flickered on the Sheikh's lips. Yes, preemptive and decisive. He turned his gaze to hers, and in that moment the barriers between them cracked further. Two souls drawn into the same peril. "I will stand by your side," she promised, voice unwavering, not as a silent shadow, but as a light to cut through the darkness. He reached out once more, fingers brushing hers. A contact charged with promises and battles yet to come. Something fierce and fragile alighted between them. A spark ignited not just by desire, but by shared survival. Then a sudden silence fell. The palace seemed to hold its breath, every whisper and creak muffled beneath the gathering tension. Outside, the desert wind howled, a mournful, wild cry that mirrored the turmoil within. From the depths of the hallways came a faint, sinister sound, soft tapping, deliberate and rhythmic. echoing like a heartbeat beneath the marble floors. It was a signal no one wished to hear, but everyone feared. The Sheikh's eyes snapped toward the sound, dark orbs blazing with suspicion and fury. "They are closer than we thought," he growled. "The traitor walks among us still." His wife stepped forward, expression hardening. "Then we set a trap. We flush out the serpent before it can strike again." A servant appeared suddenly, wide-eyed and breathless, dragging a heavy chest behind him. "Your Highness, this was found in the Chamberlain's quarters. Documents, plans for the court's downfall." The Sheikh's hand closed tightly around the ornate chest's iron handle, knuckles white as desert sand. The woman watched him, her heart pounding with the knowledge that the enemy was not just outside their walls, but woven into the very tapestry of power they had sworn to protect. He lifted the chest onto a carved table, fingers trembling not from weakness, but from the volcanic tide of emotion beneath the surface. His voice was low, a growl edged with determination and peril. "This palace will no longer be a cage," he vowed. "It will be a battlefield, one where we fight not only for the throne, but for the salvation of what remains unbroken between us." Her breath caught as he turned to her, the weight of years etched deep in the lines of his face, now softened by fierce resolve. The gulf between them was closing, not with empty promises, but with the fire of war and a fragile hope. They would stand united, not as king and queen bound by duty alone, but as two hearts battered by fate, ready to face the storm. And as the desert night deepened, shadows lengthened, swallowing the flickering candlelight into darkness. Somewhere, hidden in plain sight, a figure watched, silent, patient, and deadly. A whisper brushed the Sheikh's ear like a cold wind. "The truth you seek will burn you alive." The palace settled into an uneasy silence, the weight of conspiracies pressing heavily on every ornate surface. The Sheikh Billionaire paced slowly, each measured step echoing softly against the marble floor, the jagged edges of betrayal raw beneath his skin. The chest of documents lay open before him, a stark reminder that the enemy was no longer distant, but woven into the fabric of his own court. His wife, standing close, traced cautious circles on his arm, a quiet anchor amid the storm brewing between secrets and duty. Her eyes, dark pools reflecting strength carved by suffering, sought his. "We have no choice but to act swiftly. The palace itself is a battlefield now." He nodded, breath catching in the hollow of his throat. "Every friend could be a foe, every shadow a threat, but I will not let this poison spread." His voice was low, edged with steel and the unmistakable tremor of vulnerability. "I've lived too long behind walls I built to keep others out, and myself in. It's time to tear them down." The air between them pulsed with tension, the scent of oud mingling with sweat and unspoken fears. Their intertwined hands spoke volumes more than words ever could. Two souls battered, yet unwilling to surrender. A sudden movement caught their attention, a flash of silk slipping into the hall, as a scout returned breathless, urgency painted across his features. "Your Highness, the outer walls are compromised. Our loyal guards have intercepted spies moving toward the northern gates." It seems the betrayal runs deeper than we thought. The Sheikh's dark eyes narrowed, burning with a tempest of wrath and dread. We must not wait for the serpent to strike again. His voice fell into a fierce whisper. We must strike first. She stepped closer, shadows dancing across her face as moonlight wove through the towering windows. What are we waiting for? Let them feel the strength they attempted to break. For a moment, they stood like twin forces of nature, forging an alliance renewed by shared pain and desperate hope. But beneath the defiance lay the quiet ache of the years lost, the touches withheld, the silences unbearable. He swallowed, the flicker of shame and regret tightening his throat. I failed you, he confessed quietly, eyes dropping to the floor as if searching for pardon amid the dust. I thought my silence was protection. It was my prison. She lifted his chin gently, their eyes locking with a fragile grace. And I thought your coldness was hate, but beneath it, I found fear, a man terrified of losing what he could no longer hold. A faint, almost imperceptible smile cracked his solemn mask. Then let this war be not just against our enemies, but against the wounds we have inflicted on each other. Her voice softened, the distance falling away like a fragile veil. We are not enemies. We are survivors. The grand doors were flung open again as the chief of the palace guards entered, exhaustion lining his face. My lord, strange movements have been reported near the private chambers. Footsteps where none should be. The Sheikh's pulse quickened. Prepare a watch. No one moves unseen from this moment on, and search every corner. The traitor walks among us. The woman's eyes narrowed, steel sharpening her resolve. We must also guard our hearts. Trust sparingly. Speak only what must be spoken. The heavy velvet curtains twisted in the night breeze, echoing the turmoil that twisted the very foundation of the palace. Outside, the desert remained indifferent, vast and silent. But inside, every heartbeat raced like a drum, calling warriors to battle. He turned toward her, his expression raw and unshielded. Will you face this storm with me, not as a queen bound by title? Of her hand, tentatively gripping his sleeve. Stand in your shadow, or beside you, whichever battles we must fight, but never again apart. Their pact forged in whispered promises and haunted memories, they moved toward the war room, where maps and secrets awaited. Suddenly, the flicker of a candle illuminated a hidden figure, slipping through the shadows, unseen, unheard, the ghost of treachery wearing a familiar face. The silent steps echoed faintly. A betrayer cloaked in deceit, drawing closer with every heartbeat. In the colossal hall, the Sheikh paused, a sharp breath escaping his lips. His fingers clenched into tight fists as the faintest sound, a deliberate tapping, resounded beneath the marble floors once again. The woman met his gaze, a chill threading through her veins. It's no longer just whispers and shadows. No, he said, cold fire burning behind his eyes. The enemy is ready to strike, and the greatest danger wears the mask of family. A heavy stillness hung between them, like a death sentence. And in the depths of the palace, where light feared to tread, a voice whispered from the darkness, venomous and clear. The throne will fall, but first The blood must stain those closest to you. The Sheikh Billionarios, world, dazzling yet treacherous, spiraled on the edge of devastation, where love, loyalty, and betrayal collided in a dance as ancient as the desert sands themselves. The palace breathed a tense silence, walls heavy with unfinished battles and whispered accusations. The Sheikh Billionario stood by the towering windows, the cold light of the moon tracing the hard lines of his face, melding shadows with the unyielding strength that had come to define him. His eyes, dark embers in the night, reflected not only the flickering candles behind him, but the storm raging within. A tempest forged by betrayal, pain, and a faint glimmer of hope that dared to kindle anew. Behind him, the woman moved carefully across the marble floor, her silken gown whispering secrets with every step. She paused a few heartbeats away, the weight of 3 years of silence and distance mingling in the air like a fragile glass thread between them. Her eyes sought his, searching for something unspoken, something she feared was already slipping beyond reach. "They grow bolder," she said softly, voice tight but resolute. "The enemies within our walls. The betrayal runs deeper than even we imagined." His jaw clenched, tension radiating from his clenched fists resting against the cold glass. The Chamberlain's treachery was only the first fracture. The poison has spread, festering beneath the gilded surface. We must root it out before it consumes everything. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, punctuated only by the distant sound of desert wind caressing the palace terraces. It was a fragile calm, a momentary truce between the violence outside and the war brewing beneath their own roof. The Sheikh turned, his gaze piercing as it landed on her. "You stood by me, through silence and cold. Can I count on your strength now, when the walls are crumbling?" Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for his hand, the touch marked by 1,000 unspoken regrets and tentative forgiveness. "I stand with you," she whispered, "not as a shadow in your greatness, but as a woman who refuses to be broken." He swallowed hard, the emotion raw and unexpected, an ember beneath the ashes of pride. 3 years, lost, and yet here we are, facing the storm together. She stepped closer, the scent of jasmine and amber clinging to her like a second skin. "The storm isn't just outside these walls. It's between us, too. We have scars, deep ones, but perhaps they are the map to what we've survived, and what we could still be." His eyes softened, the walls of ice beginning to thaw as layers of regret peeled away. "If we don't stand united now, all will fall." A sudden knock shattered the fragile moment, sharp and insistent. The palace doors swung open with a creak that echoed through the hall, admitting the chief of the guards, face grim and breath ragged. "My lord," he announced, bowing briefly. "Another breach tonight. Spies were caught near the southern gate. Their markings suggest an alliance stronger than anticipated." The Sheikh's hand tightened around hers, both a shield and a promise. "They believe they can break us with whispers and shadows, but they underestimate what loyalty forged in fire can endure." The woman's voice was steady, though a flicker of unease trembled beneath. "Who do we trust? The court is awash with faces smiling, masking blades." "Trust is a luxury long gone," he muttered. "We must watch every step, listen to every silence." The serpent coils where we least expect. Their eyes locked, a charged moment of tacit understanding and defiance. Here in this vast palace, amid sewn tapestries and golden pillars, two wounded souls vowed to become warriors. He led her to the war room, where maps sprawled beneath flickering lamps, shadows dancing like restless ghosts. Fingers traced orders, as the woman's eyes scanned lines of threats, not all from foreign lands. "They plan to isolate us," he murmured, voice low but fierce. "Bite at the seams of our alliances." "But we can strike first," she replied, confidence blooming. "Quick, decisive, before the web closes." He looked to her, the flicker of a smile, rare, fragile, touching his lips. Then tonight, the war begins anew. Their joined hands were the only light in a room heavy with darkness. A sudden draft swept through the corridors, stirring heavy curtains and carrying a faint scent of smoke, an invisible warning. The sheik paused as a deliberate tapping echoed beneath the marble floor once more. A heartbeat in the silence, growing louder, closer. "The traitor moves," he said quietly, voice hardening with resolve. "Closer than we feared." She nodded, stepping beside him. "There's no turning back. Our enemies don't just want power. They want to unravel us, our family, our love." His gaze flickered to her, vulnerability naked beneath the warriorship. "Then we become something else, a force unstoppable, even in brokenness." As the night deepened, an unseen presence retreated into the shadows, watching, waiting, a breath held, a threat poised, and beneath the palace's glittering facade, beneath memories and loyalties, the whispered truth settled cold and sharp. This fight would cost more than crowns. It would cost everything, even each other. Suddenly, a soft voice, barely a murmur, brushed the sheik's ear. "A blood debt remains, and it demands payment." The air grew still. The palace waited, and the war within its heart was only just beginning. The dawn crept softly across the horizon, painting the desert sky with hues of amber and rose. Within the palace, a stillness hung that was not born of silence, but of a delicate peace after a long, crushing tempest. The Sheikh Billionaire stood by the window. The weight of the night's revelations now lifted, replaced by a calm resolve that softened the storm once raging behind his eyes. Beside him, she, his wife, his equal, breathed deeply, the tension in her shoulders easing as sunlight spilled like a promise over her delicate features. For the first time in 3 years, they stood not as distant figures bound by cold walls, but as two souls aligned, healed by the trials they had faced and the battles they had chosen to fight together. The Chamberlain's treachery had been unearthed, the venomous whispers unraveled by the combined strength of the couple whose love had been nearly broken, but never extinguished. The conspirators, those who had hidden behind masks of loyalty to tear the kingdom apart, were now exposed, their schemes crumbling like shifting sands under the Sheikh's unwavering gaze. Word had come swiftly of arrests, trials sealed with merciless justice, and the restoration of balance that had almost slipped through their fingers. The court buzzed with cautious optimism. The once tense atmosphere eased as hope stirred anew among the palace's gilded halls. Faces that had been etched with suspicion and fear now betrayed relief as if the very soul of the emirate had been saved from unraveling. He turned then, eyes meeting hers, dark pools no longer shadowed by bitterness, but sparkling with newfound trust, and a love tempered by fire and silence alike. "The night was long," he whispered, voice rough but gentle, "but we endured, not as sovereign and subject, but as two hearts free at last." Her smile, tentative yet radiant, unfolded like desert flowers blooming in the morning breeze. "We have reclaimed what was almost lost, not just the throne, but ourselves." They moved from the window to the quiet courtyard, where the first blossoms of spring had begun to pierce the soil, a symbol that life always finds a way to flourish, even after the harshest of winters. The scent of jasmine and frankincense lingered in the air, mingling with the soft chirping of birds, waking to the new day. She reached out, fingers brushing his hand with a gentle certainty. No hesitation remained, only the pure connection, forged through shared pain and unwavering hope. Their steps carried them together through the garden, each blossom mirroring the fragile yet fierce resilience that now defined their bond. The grandeur of the palace no longer confined them. Instead, it bore witness to the quiet strength that had risen from the ruins of doubt and betrayal. In the distance, the distant call of the muezzin echoed across the emirate, a sweeping melody of renewal and faith. The Sheikh Billionaire, once imprisoned by pride and pain, now walked with a heart unchained, ready to lead. Not just with power, but with compassion, born of knowledge and loss. He paused beneath an ancient olive tree, the leaves whispering secrets carried by the desert wind. Turning to her, his voice trembled not with weakness, but with a profound vulnerability. "I vowed once to protect you, yet I failed in silence. Forgive me." Her gaze softened, lit from within by the depths of understanding and mercy. "We were both prisoners of the past, but today we break free together." Their lips met in a kiss steeped in forgiveness and promise, the barriers long built by silence crumbling beneath the warmth of renewal. It was not merely a union of bodies, but of souls battered by life's storms, now resolute to weather all that the future held. Behind them, the palace doors opened quietly. Officials and family members approached, their expressions softened by the knowledge that the darkest hour had passed. The Sheikh Billionaire raised his hand in a silent call for calm, his eyes gleaming with the light of a man reborn. Addressing the gathered court, his words were steady and commanding, yet laced with the humility that new understanding brought. "This emirate stands not on fear or shadows, but on the unbreakable bonds forged by truth and loyalty. We have faced betrayal, yet our unity has prevailed. Let this be a new dawn, not only for the throne, but for all who dwell beneath its protection." A ripple of applause flowed through the hall, warm and sincere, as hope spread like wildfire in the hearts present. Later, in the quiet of their newly shared chamber, the Sheikh Billionaire traced the lines of her face, memorizing the smile that spoke of long-awaited peace. The palace, once a fortress of silence, breathed alive with laughter and light, a testament to the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. Outside, the desert sun rose fully, igniting the dunes with golden fire, as if blessing their future with the warmth they had finally reclaimed. Hand in hand, they stepped into that future, no longer separated by walls of pride, but united by a love harder won than any treasure the world could offer. And in the renewed heart of the emirate, amid the rich scent of jasmine and frankincense, a whispered truth lingered sweetly in the air. Together, they would face all storms, and nothing would ever break them again.